Dr. Ife is CEO of IntelliDigest and Enterprise Fellow of the Royal Society of Engineering. She's a wonderful speaker. I know her well, and she's got an amazing story. So can't wait to hear from you, Ife, and share your points and your discussion points around food with you now. So over to you, Ife. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Helen, for that introduction. Yeah, it's been a pleasure to be here today and to really enjoy this very insightful and challenging discussion going on around consumer behavior and dietary choice. And we currently running a poll at the moment, and we would like to see what the results coming from that poll is telling us. So I'm hoping that everyone has had the opportunity to make their vote at this point. So the first question was on globally, annual food waste is approximately, we had options 0.5 billion tons, 1.3 billion tons, and 0.1 billion tons. And I'm pleased to see that over 86% of the respondents actually picked on 1.3 billion tons, which is very correct. We had 14% for 0.5 billion tons, but this really shows that we got that awareness, we got that understanding of the magnitude of the challenge we have with the issue around food waste, and which is a fundamental issue that has to be discussed if we're talking about consumer behavior and dietary choice and around the whole food sustainability campaign. And the next question is on estimated percentage contribution of food waste to global greenhouse gas emission. You've got three options there too, 1.5%, 8%, and 5%. And 57% of the respondents actually picked 8%, which also shows a greater awareness around the issues on food waste and the impact it's got on the environment. So we understand the magnitude, we also understand the impact on the environment. Now we'll move to the next question. The next question is around estimated number of children under 5 that are stunted. Well, we had options of 144 million and over, 50 million and 10 million. And in this case, we had 83% of respondents picking 50 million. Unfortunately, we had only 17% picking 144 million. But based on UN record, it shows that over 144 million children under 5 are stunted. It seems to have a bit of a gap here in terms of understanding not just the environmental impact, but also understanding the social impact of food waste. Because if we're wasting so much, simply means that less people have access to the right food, the right nutrition, and that's where we'll help this stunted growth and malnutrition. So it's really important for us to also understand this other angle to food waste issues. Now, the next question looked at estimated percentage of death due to malnutrition. Now had 29% for 5% death, and 71% for 10% death, and then 20% there was no respondent picking that on. But the issue is that 1 in 5 people are dying because of malnutrition, and that is 20% of death is attributed to malnutrition. And it's really challenging that we don't know that, we don't have that information, that malnutrition has got a huge impact in the life of people and health of people. So I'm really glad that this is coming up in this particular discussion, that people are getting to understand that social aspect, because I think that's a bit that is not really discussed. The social aspect of food waste, the social impact of food waste, malnutrition, undernutrition, and then people being exposed to hunger. And like Steve mentioned, over 9,000 people in Edinburgh, Edinburgh alone is having challenges with having access to the right food. It means we have a bigger problem globally. Now, if we go to the last question, the question is, what does circular economy for food or a sustainable food system look like? We had 13% responding to the first question around regenerative agriculture and nutrient to farm, and we have over 88% of respondents accepting that all of the above is relevant. Now, let me list all of the above for us. The first one says it has focused on returning nutrients to farms, regenerating soils, and reducing reliance on artificial fertilizers. The second says it provides renewable foodstuffs and stimulates the bioeconomy. A circular economy encourages diversity of production with shorter supply chains, reduced waste, creating local jobs, and building resilience. The fourth one said it harnesses digital technologies to measure, track, and locate food and other organic materials. This enables better management of resources and reduces waste. This is actually a summary of what a circular economy in the food system should look like. And this also embodies most of the discussions and insights that have been provided by the rest of the speakers this morning. How can we improve regenerative agriculture? How can we ensure renewable foodstuff? How can we produce locally? And how can we ensure that technology innovations could help us drive this change in the food system? So I'm really pleased that we understand this environmental issue of food waste and how it also impacts on consumer behavior and dietary choice. But this aspect of the social impact, which has been missing, is something we've been able to crack today. And hopefully, leaving this meeting, having a better understanding on the impact our actions as individuals and also as organizations will be having on the wider society. So thank you so much for that insight. Now, we're going to move on to look at what we do at Intelli Digest to really help to mitigate some of these challenges, because ultimately for us, what we want to see is a balance, because the system we have, the food system we have today, is wasting too much, is having some people too hungry, and how do we really strike a balance so that we're not just looking to produce more, because we need to feed over 9.5 billion people by 2050. So rather than rushing to produce more to meet that, how can we make what we have more sustainable? How can we get further insight in the gaps that we have so that we can make the food we have already available to more people? And this is what we're doing with the Global Food Loss and Waste Tracker. So I'm really, really excited today to introduce you to the Global Food Loss and Waste Tracker, which has been developed in collaboration with STFC Food Network and with support from Royal Academy of Engineering. And we're so much glad and really appreciate the support from Revolutionize London, who is hosting the Circular Economy London Week event and allowing us to be part of this platform. Now, the Global Food Loss and Waste Tracker will provide insight to stakeholders in the food system from farm to fork to understand how the food waste is occurring, and more importantly, to understand the edible and inedible food waste and how the edible food waste can be prevented and inedible food waste be recovered and be reused back into the system. Someone asked me, what is edible food waste? What is inedible food waste? Now, edible food waste are those food that you waste that shouldn't be wasted. So it's grown for human consumption. You bought it from the shop because it's a sale or something happened, and then you couldn't use it, and it goes away, and you have to put it in the bin. That's edible food waste. You go to the hospital, to the hotel, there's a buffet laid out for you. At the end of that buffet, everything is chucked in the bin. That's edible food waste. And also, you go to the shop, you select all the nice looking fruits and vegetables, and then you leave the worldly ones. And most of the time, that prevents the shops from being able to buy that from the farmers. That is edible food waste. So there is a lot of edible food waste we produce. And what the Global Food Loss and Waste Tracker is going to do is to work with international organizations such as UNFAO, which Muzi has represented today, and also UNEP, to see how we can use the data from these platforms to address these challenges. And then understand where inedible food waste occur and how we can recover value from inedible food waste and use it back into the food system to improve production. So I'm really, really excited because of the impact this Global Food Loss and Waste Tracker could have in making food more accessible to people who couldn't have been able to access it, just because we can then plan better, we can produce better, and can preserve the environment better.